A new version of Valve's Steam Link gives players the ability to remotely access their Steam libraries without requiring the two machines to be on the same Wi-Fi network. The update is set to hit Steam Link hardware on apps today, though it will require users to opt into a beta build, dated March 13th, or later. Once that's done, those using Steam Link through Valve's own discontinued hardware Android app or Raspberry Pi app will be able to connect to a remote computer running Steam. Previous versions of Steam Link allowed players to connect to a machine running Steam from a Steam Link or Steam Link app, but that was only possible so long as both devices were running on the same Wi-Fi network. With the beta, that restriction is lifted, though Valve notes that both a high upload speed from the host computer and a strong network connection for a Steam Link anywhere to be functional. Valve has put a lot of effort into trying to boost the offerings of Steam Link recently. While the company discontinued the physical Steam Link hardware option late last year, it has focused instead of supporting Steam Link as an application rather than a piece of hardware. The company rolled out a Raspberry Pi app last December to give more hands-on Steam users a way to essentially create their own Steam Link device. The program has also popped up on mobile with support for Bluetooth game controllers, mice, and keyboards, though it quickly became an Android-only launch due to some beefed-up iOS App Store guidelines. If you are attending the 2019 Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, there's a very intriguing talk you will want to see that's all about the weird underbelly of the mobile market. Even if you do not make mobile games or work in the mobile market, this particular session is interesting enough that you might like to keep it on your radar as you get ready for GD 2019 next month. As part of THEGDC 2019 Business Marketing Track of Talks, game makers Alex Schwartz and Scott will proudly present 500 slot machines walk into a bar, adventures in quantity over quality. As they describe it, disheartened by all of the noise in the mobile ecosystem, they set out to determine the lowest bar for success in mobile app stores and learned some surprising lessons. They flooded the market with over 500.0 generated slot machine games. 6 million installs, made money, received some very strange emails, made it begin a roar, and garnered a stupefying number of good reviews on Google Play. They even enlisted the talents of an honest to-God MIT statistician. It's a wild story with some unique lessons, so consider making time in your GD 2019 schedule to check it out. If nothing else, you can marvel as the speakers share their experience with pushing the limits of automation as well as the rate limits of every public API under the sun. For more details, check out THEGDC 2019 session scheduler. There you can begin to lay out your GD 2019, which takes place March 18th through the 22nd at the newly renovated Moscone Center in San Francisco. Bring your team to GD, register a group of 10 or more and save 10% on conference passes. Learn more. For more details on GDC 2019 visit the show's official website, or subscribe to regular updates via Facebook, Twitter, OS. Gamasutra and GD are sibling organizations under parent company Informa. A few months ago, Mages of Mysteria launched on the Nintendo Switch, giving our friends at the GD Twitch channel a chance to check in with the developers at borrow these games and see how life has been treating them after making their custom spellcrafting adventure game. During that chat, Game designer Patrick Mondo shared helpful insights about the design of Mages of Mysteria as well as thoughts on the future of game publishing for smaller devs. You can read these selected portions of our QA with Mondo down below. Once our spell system was fairly advanced, we mostly toyed around with it, and we just played with the spells. Immediately you get inspirations for puzzles just playing with your system. If you can do that with your system, then it's probably because it's fairly advanced. It's probably because you have found something that's worth playing. If simply just toying around is fun then you have a game. I am pretty sure that all the emergent games out there, like Minecraft, we started with something along those lines. As soon as you see that, you can imagine having fun with the game for hours just looking at it. It means that it's just complex enough so that players have a lot to explore and discover. And one of the things that we wanted to design to go along with that system was a set of monsters and puzzles that forced the players to think creatively and create a new spell, and not always simply use the last spell they created and spam it. One of the most difficult things we had to do was find enemies that are not simply just meat shields, but actually require you to try something new. One of the enemies that's right along that philosophy is the gargoyle. It's an enemy that you can see in the crypt, which is our third dungeon, our third main area to explore. When we playtested the game or had players try out the game, one of the first things that they told us about that level is that the gargoyle, the enemy, is one of the most interesting enemies in the game, and not because the enemy itself is particularly difficult or appealing, but mostly because whenever they would discuss it between themselves, the playtesters found out that they each created a different spell to defeat it. One of them used what we had designed as the main solution, which was simply using a decoy. Another one created a stationary fireball that they would just use as a mine, so that the gargoyle would simply march on it and receive damage. And another player, he used an inverse augment on the fireball to shoot fireballs from his back. So we had 3 players, 3 playtesters that each had their own approach to solving the combat situation, but with completely different approaches. So once we saw that, we decided that it's what we wanted the all-out game to be. Of course, since we were too deep in production, we could only do so much. But from that point on, I think all the wild moments in the game, all the most interesting puzzles and combat were inspired by that moment of inspiration, where we kind of figured out how to design our enemies. A follow-up on this blog post. Another aspect to our production of the whole story behind the spell system is that, for the art style, we started off not being a 3D game, or not fully 3D game. Initially, we were going for a 5D game more along the lines of Do Not Starve, where we could use sprites. We wanted our characters to be 2D sprites in a 3D-ish environment, with low poly count, and maybe something that was flatter. Definitely flatter. As we built our spell system, we noticed that one of the most essential parts that we needed for the game was the fireball. So as long as we were able to make and design a fireball, we'd be able to make all sorts of puzzles. It was kind of the building block for all of the puzzles. In a 5D game, we found out it's super hard to aim at something, because you are just a sprite, right? How do you know where you are looking at? It was such a pain to design puzzles with that art style, that instead, we upped our game just a little bit to go full 3D, but still with a cartoony effect on the render. But that opened a new problem, where our spells could not be just sprites anymore. They needed to be particle systems, and thankfully the particle systems in Unity easy to create, it's quite easy to manipulate. So we had to find a way of designing the visual effects in such a way that if a player added one of the attributes, like arguments that make a fireball go right, left, bounce, that the effects would actually represent that faithfully.